Glory to Jesus Christ. My friends, here in the United States, we've just passed the secular holiday, if you want to call it that, of Thanksgiving. Now, secular or not, it's an excellent thing to give thanks, to pause and to reflect on those things which we have and even those things which we do not have, and to render thanks on their account. The thanks, of course, to God, who is the provider of all that is, and also thanks to each other. We render thanks to each other for all that is brought to our lives through the efforts and the existence of each member of the human family. Now that kind of talk, human family, human this, human that, it tends to be abused by the so-called humanists and by those who deny the transcendent. But for all that, it doesn't mean that it isn't still true. We ought to be thankful for each other, for that which we can do, for all that which we can provide, and we ought to take care of each other. That remains true, fundamentally true. We hear in the Gospel a parable from our Lord about this idea. Now, it's not among the more well-known or picturesque parables, and frankly, at first sight, it doesn't seem to be a very consoling parable at all. But it is worthy of our consideration. In this parable, we have a rich man who owned fields and farms and who has had a great harvest. And his storehouses and his barns were not large enough to contain all the fruits which he had harvested. And so he makes plans to tear down all his barns and to build larger ones, to keep everything that he has. And he makes plans then to sit back and relax and enjoy all that he has. But then it turns out that he dies that night. And God says to him, "Thou fool, this night do they require thy soul of thee. And whose shall those things be which thou hast provided?" Our Lord concludes saying, "So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich towards God." And that's it. There's your parable. A rich man who has an excess of goods, makes plans to tear down his barns and build new ones and store the excess, and then enjoy the good life, suddenly dies before he can do any of that, and apparently nobody enjoys anything. The end. Like I said, it's not one of the more crowd-pleasing parables, but I do think we ought to see a real lesson in it, and we ought to see ourselves, in fact, just a little bit in the person of that rich man. For while we may not have great amounts of material wealth as he did, he is nevertheless not chastised for having great amounts of material wealth. His mistake, and our mistake, is laying up treasure for ourselves and not being rich towards God. We, each of us, do the same thing. Maybe even every day. We might not even notice it. But those of us who live and have life within us, well, we have an inestimable treasure in our care. And we don't even think about it. Each and every day, simply by being alive, we have an incredible treasure. And how quick we are to use our time for things which do not matter. Things which are not even certain or promised to us. See, the rich man in the parable wanted to undertake a great deal of work, tearing down perfectly good barns to build larger ones, and this all for a tomorrow which never did come for him. Now, it's good to prepare for the future, definitely, but never at the expense of our duty to the present. See, while it's left unsaid in the parable, it's certain that the rich man in the parable could have brought about a great deal of good, a great deal of relief to those who stood in need, were he to have given of his excess goods. He already had full barns and storage. He was already well prepared, materially speaking, for the coming year. And that which was over and above could have been used in the love of God, who provided all the goods, that others could simply live. We see God is the ultimate provider. All that we have is from him. And to be rich towards God is quite simply to be like God, to provide, and to provide for another's necessity, to comfort the afflicted, to work all the works of mercy. Now, we, each and every one of us, may not have great barns full of goods that we can give away. That's true. But each of us do have, if nothing else, our existence, our time, friendship, a kind word, a sympathetic ear. These can provide for necessities just as much as material goods can. So let us be thankful. Let us be thankful for the opportunity to be able simply to provide of ourselves for each other. For each of us, just as for the rich man in today's parable, there will be a day when our souls will be required of us. There will be a day which will be our final day. While we have life, let us live so that when that day comes, we will have no regrets over good which was left undone, or over kind words which we left unsaid, or over thanks which we left ungiven.